Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the meeting of the City Council of the City of Falls Church for Monday, the 26th. If you please all rise and pledge allegiance with me.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening, everybody, and thank you for joining us. Ms. Bischoff, you'd call the roll.
Ms. Berry.
Here.
Ms. Gardner.
Here.
Mr. Kalin. Mr. Kalin is absent. Mr. Pepe. Mr. Pepe is absent. Mr. Snyder.
Here.
Mr. Webb.
Here.
Mayor Brooke.
Here.
Thank you, Council.
If I can get a motion to adopt the meeting agenda, please.
Mayor, I move to adopt the meeting agenda.
If I can get a second.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? The ayes have it. The agenda is adopted. We don't have any proclamations this evening. Do we have anybody here taking oath of office for either new or commission posts? Ms. Bichard, do we have anybody?
I did one before the meeting.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we are on to receipt of public comments. And given the large number of items that we've got on the agenda and the number of speaker slips we have, I'm going to allow for 2 minutes per speaker as we move forward. So, Ms. Bischoff, you would just have the timer, and what you'll hear is Ms. Bischoff's timer go off. That means your 2 minutes are up, and I would ask that we move to the next speaker after that. I'm going to try to categorize these here. And we have some items that are not on the agenda, so I'm going to begin with those. The first speaker slip I have is from Mr. Charles Plymire regarding neighborhood issues. Mr. Plymire?
Good evening, Mayor, Council. Because I'm first on the agenda, I'm going to limit my comment because we have minors in the room. I am here to make you aware of what we consider, or I consider, and my partner, we're a gay couple in the City of Falls Church, very serious issue that's happening at the Falls Chase condominium. Most of you know I own a home on West Marshall Street. I also own a property at 1136 South Washington Street. And I own a unit that my mother owned, and we're going to be putting it up for sale. In our complex, some very seedy behavior has been going on for quite some time, and I'm not going to elaborate on it, but it's in this letter that you're going to read, along with appropriate information, some of which may be graphic, so I warn you. I've asked that the police do what they can, and they've tried. It's gone to zoning through John Boyle's office, and they tried. Formal complaints have been given to the board of our association. They lack ability of enforcement, in my personal opinion. I'm going to say something that says, let's be very frank. I'm going to quote from this letter, but I won't quote it all. I believe the activity that is happening is noxious and offensive to our small community. I believe it violates all the spirit of what Falls Chase is about, and that we have a varied group of people living there, elders, singles, and children. The events that are happening do not harmonize with our community. Let's be very frank about this situation, and I will not mince words. These events are not social in nature. They are not tea and cookie parties. That is a ruse. They're offensive. What's happening has got to stop. I will suffer all consequences, including arrest, if necessary, to stop this behavior. And I want it stopped, and I want the council to look into it immediately. And that's all I have to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Plymire, for bringing this to our attention. Thank you. If you would hand it to the clerk, she'll make sure that we all get copies. Thank you very much. The next speaker slip that I have is from Stephen, and I can't make out the last name, but I believe it's Wertume. Thank you. Thank you, Stephen.
I I want to talk about the trajectory of real estate taxes in the city. I looked at the PowerPoint, and it showed that in 2006 we had 30 million revenue from real estate, 30 million revenue from non-real estate. Since that time, the revenue from real estate has gone up to 42 million, and the revenue from non-real estate has declined to 26 million. This is a 40% increase in revenue from real estate taxes. My personal tax increased in my home 7.13%, and my real estate taxes for this year will be about $7,200. Now, I noticed that we have an alternative tax rate of $1.29 versus $1.27 as proposed. I wonder why there's never any proposal that the real estate tax go down, particularly in light of the steep increases in real estate taxes that we've had recently, the last few years. What this is going to mean is that each year there's a higher percentage of my income that goes to pay for real estate taxes. So what I'm interested in is, I see two alternatives. Either the city is not a prudent or a disciplined steward of our tax monies, which I don't necessarily believe. I think it's very possible that you guys really do a very fine job. But I've raised an issue over the last 6 years at any number of these meetings, and I've asked the same question. Is our city of sufficient size to be viable for the long term? Another 3 to 4 years from now, if my real estate taxes are $10,000, I'm going to be forced to move. So I'm going to be asking you folks to possibly consider the possibility, and here's my prejudice perhaps, but if everyone here has a vested interest in maintaining the city as it is, then perhaps we need an outside commission to look into the possibility of merging with Arlington County? I don't know, but some other alternative.
Thank you very much for your comments. I've got a series of speaker slips that are regarding the budget, and there's 2 speaker slips that I have, one that's regarding the pedestrian plan and the other that's regarding TR 12-08. I'm happy to take these out of order if the speakers would wish. The first speaker slip I have is from Ms. Marty Meserve. Ms. Meserve, I'm happy to take your comments now or when we take up the item.
Well, since it's on the consent calendar, I'd rather do it now. Thank you.
Very good point. Welcome.
Although I'm sure it's going to be a very interesting meeting. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council. My name is Marty Meserve. I live at 708 Berry Street. I'm here tonight on behalf of Creative Cauldron to encourage your approval of item TR 1208 to submit a local government matching grant application to the Virginia Commission for the Arts. The $10,000 that the grant represents will go far in helping Creative Cauldron continue the programs that have been bringing the arts to our community for over a decade. The grant money will be broadly applied to support community arts and cultural events through ArtSpace. We partner with Falls Church Arts, which presents a full calendar of exhibits, classes, and juried events. We collaborate with the Tinner Hill Heritage Foundation. Next up is Women of the Blues, a prelude to the Tinner Hill Blues Festival in June. And we offer space to the Falls Church City Schools to highlight students' art and music achievements. In 2011, approximately 11,000 people attended performances, and 300 artists from the disciplines of theater, music, dance, and visual arts participated in our programs. Most recently, Creative Cauldron produced Madeline and the Gypsies as part of our learning theater arm that teams local children with professional actors and musicians. The 12 shows, most sold out, entertain a total audience of close to 1,000 people who came from Rockville, Silver Spring, Lorton, Ashburn, Capitol Hill, and Ottawa. Yes, tourists from Canada took a cab from their DC hotel to come see the show. We're on the map. I believe that the arts are the city's tickets to a bright economic future. On another note, I'd like to invite you to the opening this Friday night from 7 to 10 at ArtSpace of the 9th annual all-member show sponsored by Falls Church Arts. I'd like to thank you for your continued generosity and support, and also remind you that most of this grant will come back to you in the form of our real estate taxes. Thank you.
Thanks very much. The next speaker slip that I have is from Mr. Jeff Weaverly regarding the pedestrian bicycle traffic plan.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. I am here tonight. My name is Jeff Weaver. I live at 425 Lincoln Avenue. I'm here to address the council regarding the March 2012 draft of the pedestrian, bicycle, and traffic calming strategic implementation plan as it relates to Lincoln Avenue. Within the 98-page plan, there is a proposal to eliminate on-street parking on Lincoln Avenue and to replace it with bike lanes on both sides of the street. I have collected 62 signatures from people on Lincoln Avenue opposing this plan. I have another 8 or so who asked to sign, and I will get their signatures at a later time. The reason we oppose the plan is eliminating the parking on the street will pose a hardship to the residents of Lincoln Avenue, who will be forced to park on side streets, including at least one person who has no driveway. It will be a burden on people who live on adjacent streets, who will now have to host the cars of people who live on Lincoln or their guests. Creating bicycle lanes on Lincoln Avenue is wasteful, given that the W and O&D trail is right behind and parallels Lincoln Avenue from West Street to the edge of the city, just as the proposed bike lanes do. And encouraging bicycle traffic to move from the W and O&D trail onto the street will expose bicyclists to greater dangers from motor vehicles. And finally, there's been some controversy over the years about the speed on Lincoln Avenue of cars. The belief of many residents there is that removing parked cars on the side of the street will create the impression that the street is in fact wider than it is, and in fact will result in higher speeds on the street. So with your consent, I would submit a copy of this, the original copy of this petition for the record, and we'll supplement it at a later date with additional signatures from members of Lincoln Avenue and surrounding streets.
Great. Thank you very much, Mr. Weaverly. And if you'd just present those to Ms. Bichelle, she'll make sure that we do receive them. The remaining items that I have are regarding the budget, so we'll take those up once we take up the budget item. Ms. Bichelle, if you'd summarize any other public comments we've received in writing or via email.
Council, before you, I have a summary of our written comments. With regard to the budget, you have an email from Jeffrey Hill, 101 Channel Terrace, who has urged the council to consider a minimum of 6% raise for city employees. In his email, he discusses the financial impacts of no raises for the past 3 years on him personally. Jody Acosta at 101 Poplar Drive has asked the council to give city employees a 6% raise to mitigate the loss of income over the past 3 years and to establish policies to bring the city's salaries in line with surrounding jurisdictions. With regard to the PED plan, Arthur Pyer, 513 Ann Street, agreed with Mr. Snyder's comments in the news press regarding the PED plan, and he has asked what the average cost of the plan would be to residents. Mike Novotny on Maple Avenue has asked the council to make his recommended changes to the PED plan with respect to his street and his suggestion about formatting data. With regard to the North Washington Street plan, Juanita Bowman at 114 Gresham Place made suggestions with regard to the plan after attending several public meetings, including, and one of her suggestions includes a traffic light at Gresham Place, which is a cul-de-sac. Under transportation, you received an email and several others from Ms. Wee Lee Fang at 7022 Jefferson Avenue in Falls Church. And this came by way of the Coalition for Smarter Growth. And they urged the council to work with Governor McDonnell to allow localities to retain their rights to make transportation and land use decisions. Those are your written comments, council.
Thank you. Ms. Bichelle, if you would, next we have the report of the city manager to the council, Mr. Shields.
Thank you, Mayor Baruch, members of council. Just two things to report tonight. First, I'm very pleased to announce that the Employee Review Board has chosen Sue Richter as our Employee of the Year. This was announced last week. Sue works in our City Human Services Department, where she manages our Fairfax County contracts and our CDBG contracts, and she does an excellent job on it on behalf of our citizens in the city who are often in the greatest need. And it's wonderful that she's being recognized with the city's highest honor for its employees this year. This year, due to some travel that she actually had planned prior to being selected, we're going to plan to recognize her later than usual at the council meeting on in April 23rd. So congratulations to Sue Richter. And the second item to report, we are beginning our spring cleaning for our water system. This is when the Washington Aqueduct switches over from chloramine to free chlorine, and this is typical for water systems throughout the country. We will be doing that from March 26th through May 7th, 2012, and customers will notice a slight change in the water taste. When we do make that switch over to free chlorine, we also take the opportunity to flush our system, and you'll see our water utility staff out exercising hydrants and letting the water run just to make sure that they're running clear. And they also take the opportunity to provide any routine maintenance that our hydrants need to make sure that they are ready for service if needed in an emergency. Those are just two items to report tonight. Be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Mr. Shields? Any requests? Thank you. Ms. Bashaf, if you'd read the first item on the business agenda.
Council, the first item before you, TO 12-06, ordinance setting the rate of tax levy on real estate, personal property and machinery and tools, and all other property segregated by law for local taxation in the city of Falls Church, Virginia for the tax year 2012.
What I would propose that we do is actually take all the items up together, but then take all three together and then vote on them separately, but we can hear them together.
I'll be happy to read the others too. The next budget item is TO 12-07. This is an ordinance fixing and determining the budget of expenditures and revenues, appropriating funds for the fiscal year 2013, general fund, school operating fund, school community service fund, and school food service fund, water revenue fund, and sewer revenue fund. And the third budget item is TO 12-08, an ordinance fixing and determining the FY 2013 through FY 2017 capital improvements program budget and appropriating expenditure and revenue funds for the fiscal year 2013.
Thank you very much. Mr. Shields?
Thank you, Council. I will not provide a detailed report on these items because I gave a presentation on March 12th, and we've already begun our work sessions to go through the budget in detail. But for the benefit of our citizens, the tax rate ordinance would maintain the current tax rate for real estate at $1.27 per $100 of assessed value, and we would also maintain our personal property tax rate at $4.84 per $100 of assessed value. That's the car tax, and for business, tangible. That is the tax ordinance. The budget ordinance would set all of our operating expenditures for the general fund and for all of our funds, water, sewer, and schools. For our general fund expenditures, there is an increase in revenues and in expenditures of 6.7% compared from FY12 and FY13. And we will be working through all of the details of these budgets over the next several weeks. We do have a public hearing, of course, scheduled for tonight, and a second one for April 9th, and a third one for April 23rd when this is scheduled for Council's final adoption. And we also have town hall meetings scheduled in April at the Community Center on Saturday, April 16th. And then lastly, with the capital improvements program, we have that as a separate ordinance, and that is an appropriation for FY13. But for the out years, the 4 years of the out years of the CIP, that is simply an adoption of a plan. There has been discussion, we'll talk about the CIP in detail at your work session on April 2nd. There has been some discussion about LEED, and if the city were to adopt a policy on attaining LEED certification for its facilities, how would that impact the CIP? And what I would offer to the council is for the items that are funded in FY13, which represents an appropriation, the school board has already indicated that they do not intend to seek LEED certification for the Thomas Jefferson School expansion, and we think that for the City Hall projects, similar to the arguments on LEED certification that were applicable to the TJ project, that it would be very difficult to achieve LEED certification for what we have planned for City Hall because of the square footage increase relative to the existing building, and it's not a standalone structure. But for that reason, we don't have at this point any LEED numbers for the FY13 numbers or any projections on cost. But for the out years, as this policy gets developed, we can have that discussion and then factor those costs in. So I'd offer that for the council's consideration, and if there are any questions on that or desire for further discussion, we stand ready to do that. That's a brief report over very large and important documents, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Questions for Mr. Shields, council? When we get to the CIP issue? Okay, thank you. Any questions on the first three items which have to do with the tax rates? Okay. All right, if I can get a motion, and then we'll also then open this up for a public hearing. And why don't we just take the first motion, we'll take on seriatim. So why don't we begin with the first one, which is TO 12-06.
Okay, Mr. Mayor, I move to adopt TO 12-06 on first reading, schedule public hearing on April 9 and April 23rd, and second reading on April 23rd, 2011. I think you mean 2012, right? Mm-hmm. And continue to advertise the same according to law.
Thank you. If I can get a second? Second. Is Mr. Snyder on the second? I'd like to open this item up for public comment. I have several speaker slips. I'm going to ask that all of the speaker slips, we're going to take all your comments together on this item. If you wish to comment on the CIP, we'll take that up coming up as well. The first speaker slip that I have is Dr. Jeremy Barrett. Ms. Barrett, Mr. Barrett, you have, Jerome Barrett, you have 2 minutes.
Given the time constraints, I'll just mention a couple of things. I have my remarks, and I'll give them to the secretary. First of all, I want to say thank you. You supported. I'm sorry. I'm Jerry Barrett, and I'm your representative on the Community College Board. So I'm representing the community college here. The college appreciates the long time that the city has supported the community college. And there's a contribution to the community college in the city manager's budget, and we hope that you'll find that favorable to support. Secondly, I just want to say that we introduced the college and the school board has made an arrangement for dual enrollment, and it just started this year, and it's going to expand next year. It gives an opportunity for kids in the high school, children in the high school, to take courses that are provided by a college instructor and get both high school and college credit for it. And the beauty of that is that they not only get credit, but they also get experience with handling college level matters like that. We're looking forward to having that work well, and appreciate all your support to the community college. Thank you.
Mr. Barrett. The next speaker slip that I have is from Jason Whitstrom, followed by Mr. Joe Carter.
Good evening, Mayor Baruch and members of council. As you know, my name is Jason Widstrom. I'm a civil engineer in the Department of Public Works, and I stand before you tonight as chair of the Employee Advisory Committee. Over the past few years, the city's general government employees have endured reductions in force, pay freezes, increased costs in health insurance premiums, and increased retirement contributions. We have also been very understanding of the city's fiscal problems and taken a share of the sacrifices. The proposed budget indicates the city is on the mend. With this good news in mind, employees are looking forward to a budget that begins a process of reinvestment in staff. And after three long years of cuts. Tonight, we are here to show you how important this is to us, the employees, and the sustainability of the city. And if I could ask anybody who's an employee of the city, could they stand? As you can see behind me, we are very serious on this point. We believe a reinvestment should start now. Compensation needs to be a priority. Thank you. Last year, City Council was balancing the uncertainties of revenues against pension costs. If you recall, the City Manager recommended a salary increase, and Council agreed to some extent that a modest increase was needed, yet it had to be unpensionable. It's difficult to say that had revenues been more optimistic, as we now know them to be, that the Council would have authorized a salary increase instead of a bonus, but here we are today. FY13 pension costs are basically flat over FY12, and the benefit of hindsight, it seems reasonable for the Council to solidify what was initially proposed as a raise and then later changed to a bonus. Employees understand the Council has directed the City Manager to present a budget that provides a level of compensation that is competitive with regional labor markets while remaining sustainable over the long term. As reported by the Benefits Task Force, the City of Falls Church is 15% below the average paid jurisdictions. The proposed budget and a 3% raise over FY09 expenditures does not adequately address this point. Furthermore, in a little over 3.5 years, we've seen 40% of turnover in a tough economic climate. While we commonly think of sustainability in terms of dollars and cents, we should also consider the city's ability to continue operations in an effective and efficient manner. Government is not an industry that should burn through employees by overworking and underpaying them. Considering the costs associated with the loss of institutional knowledge and reduced productivity alone makes this point clear. Additionally, the failure to remain competitive develops a situation where there is no middle. We can see the impact already as we tend to either have seasoned professionals that feel they're stuck here due to their investment in a defined benefit, or young professionals looking to get their foot in the door. The middle, which is typically not tied to the city financially and is highly qualified and able to find new opportunities for more money, rightly questions why they should stay. Again, this is not a sustainable model. In closing, as City Council works through compensation for the budget, the employees hope you would support our recommendations to approve a budget that, one, includes an employee compensation package that is competitive with surrounding jurisdictions and equitable across the organization, and number two, includes an increase in employee compensation at a minimum of 3% over FY12's funding level. And lastly, city employees support the commissioning of a detailed study on compensation in FY13 and the development of a City Council compensation philosophy. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
How's everyone doing? My name is Joe Carter. I'm a sergeant with the City of Falls Church Police Department. Last year I stood before you, gave you numbers, tried to speak politically correct. This year I will not do that. I will not lie and say this year has been a tough year for the police department, as it has been for other cities' employees. We've been hit with a lot of different issues. One, myself, I've been hit with is people have stood before you from the Eden Center talking about how much negativity we have brought to their community. I am here to tell you that that is false. I worked there for 5 years, blood and sweat, to turn that community around, took many phone calls at home. I'm not here to defend myself or the police department. I think our works does that for us. What I'm here to tell you is this. I've had 2 kids. One's in college, the other one's in 7th grade. I'd be stupid to say that education is not the key to their future or their success. I think the school system should fight for what they need and get what they need. But I also think that we should get what we need. I grew up in the city. I'm a product of the city. I went to George Mason High School. I don't know if some would accept that, but it is what it is, right? My family, they lived here not for just the school system alone. Many people worked government. It was convenient. They work here, or they lived here because it was convenient. They lived here because you have one of the best hospitals in the country, Fairfax Hospital, which is 10 minutes away. You have one of the best malls in the country, which is about 10 minutes away. You have a police department where you can pick up the phone and talk to the chief in that day and probably have something done within the next 1 or 2 days. You have Robert Goff, who was head of Public Works, or when I was kind of younger, he was there. My family could pick up the phone and call any one of these guys if they had a problem at home at their residence, and they would show up immediately to try to help them out. You have a city manager who someone can pick up the phone and talk to. You have a city council, somebody can pick up the phone and talk to. Any other place that these people live, it would take forever, probably, to get the service that the citizens have here. What I'm asking you is you start treating us fairly and understand this year that it's not just because the school system, this city thrives. It's because of what you have working for you and the convenience around it that makes the city what it is. And we're asking to be treated fairly. We're asking to get a pay raise. Gas is going up. Insurance rates are going up. It's what we talked about before this whole thing started. And you know what? Handshakes and pats on the back just are not getting it anymore. Okay? Even as a supervisor from this department, I am the ever optimist. I talk positively with my people. It's difficult. It's difficult to see them do 3 or 4 other things on top of the job they have out there outside patrol and continue to tell them things are going to get better, things are going to get better. Well, they're not. And this year, you guys need to make things right. Make things right for all employees here and do the right thing and give us the compensation we deserve. Thank you.
The next speaker slip I have is from Deborah G., followed by Kathy Allen.
Good evening. My name is Deborah G. I live at 501 Greenwich Street, and I'm a city employee. And like Joe, I grew up in the city, went through the school system, and came back as an adult. First, thank you for the bonus that each city employee received in the budget adopted last year. That modest amount made a big difference because it was the first compensation increase since July 2009. When I first started working for the city, each employee received a step increase and most years a cost of living adjustment. In about 2000, the city moved to a performance review program where, with hard work and outstanding achievements, an employee could earn even more each year than they could with the previous step system. Certainly a part of the American dream. Work hard and you will be compensated accordingly. I've been a city employee for nearly 24 years, and I made the vast sum of $14,011 in my first year of service. I've taken advantage of the former tuition assistance program that allowed me to gain knowledge and skills that enabled me to serve the city's Historic Architecture Review Board. Upon the adoption of a new resolution this evening, the number of members on the city's Historical Commission will be reduced to 5, and they will be appointed a staff liaison for the first time since the commission was formed in 1976. I look forward to expanding my historical knowledge of the city by serving as a Historical Commission's liaison beginning next month. While all employees have taken on increasing responsibilities over the years, many former opportunities have been eliminated. The progressive step increase pay system, the tuition reimbursement program, the commuter incentive program, among others. After a 40% staff turnover since the mid-2008, increased costs for medical insurance, the rising pension contributions, current employees do not have the opportunities provided by the city previously and have fallen well behind employees providing the same services in local jurisdictions. I personally can no longer afford to eat in city restaurants, to shop at unique city businesses, nor buy my groceries and gasoline in the city. I'll skip to my closing remarks. I can only try to imagine the situation in which many of my lower-paid co-workers survive. I wonder if some of them have to call out to work because they don't have the gasoline to get to and from work daily, and whether they are insufficiently nourished to do their work. I know that city employees provide great services to our community. I've been the recipient of them. Please show them that they are valued by compensating city employees in a shrinking workforce that has fallen far below compensation levels in surrounding jurisdictions. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker slip I have is Kathy Allen, followed by Christine Fink.
Good evening, Mayor Baruch and City Council. I'm Kathy Allen. I'm the Superintendent of Public Works. I'm also a resident in the city. I live at 1007 Seton Lane. I've been superintendent for all of 3 months, but I've worked for the city for 5.5 years. I'm here tonight to speak on behalf of the 20 employees that I directly supervise in Public Works operations at the property yard. Can you stand up for me? A lot of them here tonight. These employees represent urban forestry, fleet, streets, administrative assistant, custodial staff, and facilities. These employees haven't seen a real change in their take-home pay for more than 3 years. They start work at 7 every morning, they work hard every day. During this time, in the last 3 years, the workforce has been downsized, budgets have been cut, and across the board, employees have stepped up to do their jobs with less resources and while paying more for their pensions and benefits. They have done this knowing that it was a necessity. During this time, employees' take-home pay has remained stagnant, but the cost of living has increased and gas prices have gone through the roof. That has a huge impact on many of these employees that live further out. Additional incentives have been cut: employee tuition assistance program, the commuter incentive program. The city government has experienced a huge turnover in the last few years. And now I'm speaking for myself as a supervisor. How do I keep the employees here? What can I say to them when they come to me and say, why should I stay? What do we have to offer them? Other jurisdictions are increasing their employees' compensation, and as the economy starts to improve, the first thing we should be doing is reinvesting in our employees. The budget before you won't give them more take-home pay. On behalf of Public Works Operations staff, I'm asking you to find a way in the FY13 budget to give them more take-home pay. They stuck by you during the tough times, and now it's time to show them that you'll stick by them. Thank you.
The next speaker slip I have is from Matt Brown. Actually, I'm sorry. It's Christine Fink, and followed by Matt Brown. Okay. Do we have Mr. Matt Brown here?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Matt Brown. I work for Department of Public Works. I'm a civil engineering inspector. As of 2009, my title was an E&S inspector. It stood for erosion sediment inspections, which was my primary job. I also assisted with solid waste inspections and solid waste enforcement. In addition to that, I also performed right-of-way inspections of any work that was done within the city right-of-way. Now, as my position has changed, I am also still an E&S inspector. I still assist with solid waste enforcement. I helped with the transition as the solid waste was privatized. I continue to perform right-of-way inspections. In addition to that, I also see traffic counter placements throughout the city, as well as the traffic studies. I oversee sign placement requests within the city. I'm also overseeing bringing all regulatory and street name signs into compliance with the new MUTCD standards. I inspect conditions of the storm system's outfalls. I help maintain mapping information for sign replacements, traffic counter placements, and street conditions. I'm not alone in this, in that 3 years ago, my paycheck was $22.71 more. Most of the employees that stood up are in my position where our workload has increased and our pay has decreased. I purchased a home in Sterling last year, and I spent about 2 hours on the road every day because I can't afford to live anywhere in the city. My point is that I know that city is looking at and actually adding on new positions within the city. Some are even in my department, and I'm not questioning that, but I am asking the council to question, before you look at adding on new employees, are you currently valuing the ones that you already have? Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker slip. The next speaker slip I have is from Mr. Joshua Goff, followed by Marty Godon.
Good evening, Council. My name is Joshua Goff. I'm a utility inspector with the Public Utilities Division. I've worked for the city for the last 11 years. I'm a third-generation employee with the City of Falls Church. My grandfather, my father, and my uncle all have worked or still currently working for the city. My family has contributed approximately 85 years of combined service to the city. During my 11 years, I've been involved with major cleanups from Hurricane Isabel, record snowfall, and major flooding. During these events, I've seen employees work record hours, away from their families to ensure the safety of the public and the citizens of Falls Church. For over 80 years, the city has operated a world-class water system. I've seen employees work around the clock in all types of weather and on all major holidays, repairing water mains to ensure water customers have service at all times. The employees of the city are dedicated, hardworking, and proud men and women. When the city asked the employees in 2009 to take a pay freeze and take on more responsibilities in our pension and our insurance, we accepted it without reservation because it was the right thing to do to help the city. Everyone had to make sacrifices during the economic downturn, and the employees of the city did their part. Now that the economy is starting to look up, it's time for council to do its part. Make the $1,800 bonus given to the employees in the 2012 budget pensionable. It's the right thing to do. Thank you.
The next speaker slip I have is Miss Mary Gorda, I believe, followed by Chris Delta.
Good evening, Council. My name is Mary Gonda. I am a resident of Falls Church. I live at 105 Smallwood Way here in Falls Church. And I'm just here to say I'm in support of city employees because in order for our little city to continue providing the world-class services that it does, it's really important that our employees be properly compensated. I'm a retiree from the city. I worked for the city for 11 years, and I worked in the Human Resources Division. When I worked here, I can look in the audience, and I'm proud to say that I helped attain some of the talent that we have here. We have a lot of really highly dedicated professionals, many who have worked here for such a long time, so dedicated, continuing to stay here with the city, showing their loyalty even though they haven't received any pay increases for several years now. One of the reasons I can say that we were able to attract and entice a lot of our employees to come and work here was because of the great working environment, the great compensation that we could offer because we worked very hard to remain competitive. We had some great benefits, and that was how we were able to get these employees. And in order to keep these employees, we're going to need to find a way as a city government to ensure that we can start properly compensating them again, to have a continuity. It's really, really expensive to try to hire people when you have resignations and people leave. Then you have to try to find ways to get new ones, and it's extremely expensive to do that, to bring new people on board, to make sure they're trained. That's very, very expensive. You've got some great people here, and I hope you find a way to ensure that they're properly compensated. Thank you very much.
The next speaker slip I have is from Chris Delta, followed by Danny Estras, I believe.
Good evening, Council. My name is Chris Delta, and I'm from the library. The two items that affect my ability to work efficiently and my morale are the physical conditions of my workspace and the inequity in the budget process as it relates to compensation. Since you've unfortunately cut our speaking time to only 2 minutes, I've given Kathy my full statement, and you can read about the poor conditions in the building that I work in, perhaps at a later date. And I'll just move on to the issue of compensation. It is difficult to talk about compensation without referencing the obvious inequities that exist in the current budget process. The schools have a school board and a PTA to rally around them each budget cycle, but we are left standing alone before you each year. Each budget cycle for the past 3 years has been a difficult one, resulting in numerous layoffs, lower wages, and hefty increases in employees' contributions towards benefits and retirement. Employees have been asked to do our jobs in buildings where infrastructure has been long ignored and to take on additional responsibilities that have resulted from significant reductions in staff. We stayed with the city during the hard times, and we feel we deserve to be adequately rewarded for our loyalty as the economy gradually rebounds. We are told the city values us, but never enough to give us raises similar to those it gives to school employees. It's clear to see from the pie chart what receives the biggest slice of the pie, and it's not the city employees. The broader and more pervasive staff cuts always occur on the backs of the city employees. This year, as in the past, the council will probably pass a budget that gives the city's school systems everything it demands. What is even worse, the schools are permitted to hold on to any excess in their budget at the end of each year, which was approximately $1.2 million last year. This year, employees were encouraged to hear we may be getting a 3% raise until we realized that the 3% is meaningless when you back out our rising costs for benefits and retirement. It is difficult to accept this considering Falls Church is the richest city in the country and school employees will get a meaningful salary increase in this same budget. If a budget is a moral document reflecting the values and priorities of an organization, then this budget speaks volumes about how the city regards its employees. A budget that includes wish list items and the hiring of additional personnel cannot be considered moral if it does not also provide adequately to compensate for all of its existing employees. I challenge you to look at the budget and treat with dignity and respect not only the citizens of the city, but the employees who diligently serve them each day. Thank you for your time.
I would just ask our everybody in the audience, I know that this is a really emotional issue for everybody and a real issue, but just so we have decorum in the chambers, if we can just refrain from clapping, I think the council would appreciate it as we move through, and I think it would show respect to all the fellow speakers as well. The next speaker slip I have is from Diane Estra, followed by David Lasso.
Ladies and gentlemen of our City Council, good evening. My name is Danae Erb. I think you are a victim of my handwriting.
And I couldn't make out the last name at all.
That's okay. I work for the Department of Public Utilities and Engineering. I'm also a member of the Employees Advisory Committee, but I'm here tonight to represent myself. I'd like to start by saying thank you. It's been a tough 3 years for all of us. We have been through a bad economy, and we are hopefully on the way to an improved economy. I'm really glad I still have a job with the city. Some of our fellow employees were not so fortunate. I also value my pension, one of the significant reasons why I've chosen to work for the city. You gave us, the employees, a bonus last year, and I appreciate that. As a matter of fact, I sent a thank you to Wyatt on behalf of that. It really helped me out. I understand you're considering a flat 3% salary increase for us without the bonus from last year. I also understand this does not amount to a significant take-home pay increase. However, it does count towards our pension, and I appreciate this as well. I have heard from my fellow employees, and I have seen the research they have done on our behalf. I'm sure you have heard this and seen it as well. Like the economy, I'm trying to recover. This is why I'm here tonight. I understand there is money in the upcoming budget to reasonably compensate the city's general fund employees, enough for each of us to see a fair increase in our take-home pay. Yet I hear you will not consider approving such an increase. You must have a good reason for not wanting to approve this increase, and at the risk of sounding ungrateful, I would like to know why. Perhaps I don't understand everything correctly, and maybe the research I have seen is wrong. I would like to hear from you. I want to understand. Thank you.
The next speaker slip I have is from Mr. David Lasso, followed by Ms. Elizabeth Perry.
Good evening, Mayor Baruch and members of the City Council. My name is David Lasso. I live at 322 Van Buren Street in Falls Church. And I come before you tonight to say that our family supports adequate and fair compensation for city employees, and to say that we appreciate their work. We appreciate your work. We know how hard it is to make the decisions that you have to make. I want to provide a perspective to you that you may not have heard tonight, and it comes from the roughly 15 years of experience I've had in the private sector since I left as city manager. I deal every day with employees, highest levels and the lower levels, if you will, from all of the jurisdictions in this area. And I can tell you that the employees in the City of Falls Church work every bit as hard, maybe even harder, because they don't have the depth of staff to work as the other jurisdictions do. And they labor at some of the most sophisticated levels that you'll encounter anywhere in this area. So I come to you and I say, they're your most valuable asset. Treat them fairly. I know that you will. I know that you're working hard at doing it. And again, I appreciate all that you do. I support you, our family supports you, and we support the employees. And of course, full disclosure, my son Kenneth is an employee here. I couldn't have been prouder when he chose to come to work for the City of Falls Church. And he's not unlike a lot of the professionals that you want to attract. He has a bachelor's degree, he has a master's degree, he graduated in the upper part of his class. He's interned for the Department of Justice, the Department of Census, and he's here because he wants to be here. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The next speaker slip I have is from Ms. Elizabeth Perry, followed by Mr. Tom Clinton.
Good evening. My name is Elizabeth Perry. I'm a planner with the city's planning department. I've been with the city about 4.5 years, but I have always worked for or with local government. It is something that I am passionate about. And I think a lot of the city employees feel the same way. We work here by choice, not by default. And no one enters local government service expecting to become a millionaire. But I think it's reasonable to expect, like many jobs, that if you work hard and you meet or exceed expectations of your position, that your salary will moderately increase over time. And I think it's also reasonable to expect that a community will seek to ensure that city staff salaries stay current with the costs of living. To me, this is just basic, adequate compensation. It was disappointing to learn that under the current proposal that staff salaries would be relatively flat for the next fiscal year. But I was particularly concerned that at the same time we're proposing new staff members. And I'm concerned about the sustainability, but also the perceived message of that proposal. With regard to sustainability, I want to ensure that we have the resources to sustain these positions over time, or will we be back again talking about staff cuts next year? I don't understand how we can grow the size of the government without adequately compensating the existing staff. And that brings me to my concern about the perceived message. And it makes you feel that, are we not a staff that you want to compensate? And it concerns me because I work very hard to provide a high quality work product and a high level of service for the community. And I see that drive with other staff members. And if that's not evident in the work that we do for you, or if we're not meeting your expectations, I urge you to work with the city manager and the directors of our departments to ensure that your expectations are being met so that we can be a staff that you want to compensate, and that those of us who want very much to stay in service to this community can find it financially viable to do so. Thank you.
The next speaker slip that I have is from Mr. Tom Clinton, followed by Mr. Bill Hicks.
Good evening, Mayor Baruch, Vice Mayor Snyder, City Council members. My name is Tom Clinton. I live at 711 Hillwood Avenue. I was born and raised in Falls Church, but I'm here tonight speaking as the Commissioner of Revenue and just trying to give the public and yourselves a little perspective on how the budget decisions have affected my office. The main thing I would like to talk about is workload and how much it has grown over the 10 years that I've been here as Commissioner of Revenue. And there's more on the way. I have seen 2 of my employees leave in the last year because of workload and overall lack of office support. So there is a real cost when you freeze salaries for 4 years, as it's happened in the 3 constitutional offices. We've fared even worse than the city employees. We have an economic model in the city. It's the Tistler-Bice model, and it's supposed to factor in the cumulative effect of growing business and residential growth on city staff when we approve projects, and it hasn't. as my staff has only grown by 1/2 of one position, and that was from a part-time position to a full-time one, and that was over 7 years ago. This was while the city's population has grown by 25% in the same time. The DMV has added to the workload, but the resources have not been provided to address that specific work either, and that further compounds our difficult situation. What happens when we're not given the proper resources to do our job is very simple. There's less revenue generated to help the city's bottom line, helping to pay for salaries for all these good employees. And our office is responsible for over 20% of the city's total revenue. Every dollar spent in our office returned many times over, which helps the city's bottom line. If you have any questions or are curious about our workload and our staffing, please come by. It's an open door. We're busy all day. We're happy to show you what we do. If you have, and I just have a couple quick examples. Most days we don't even take a lunch. I'm sure there are other employees do the same thing. There are days when we don't even have time to open our mail and get checks over the treasurer's office. I know budgets are full of very difficult decisions, and I fully respect the challenge that's before you. And I thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you. The next speaker slip I have is from Mr. Bill Hicks, followed by Mr. James Brooks.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council. I'm Bill Hicks. I'm the Director of Public Works. The city has 180 employees, give or take a few. 30 of those are in the Department of Public Works. You saw many of them stand up. Several spoke tonight. We, just like other departments in the city, but I get the pleasure to work with Public Works, provide critical services. We plow snow during the winter at all hours of the night. We pick up leaves on the curb every fall. We fix our roads and our sidewalks. We clean out our storm drains. We had big conversations just recently about storm drainage and the importance of that. It's our crews, it's our engineers who do that work. We make sure the toilets flush in this building. All things that we value, critical services. We also provide some other things. We're there for the Memorial Day Parade. We're there shutting down roads. We're there picking up trash, something that the community really values. We're there all night on watch night. We start noon, 2 o'clock in the afternoon. After all the preparation weeks before, we're there starting early in the day to make sure the roads can be closed, the generators are out, the solid waste equipment is there. We're there to provide a service so that watch night can go on, a big event that the community values. We have an urban forestry unit to care for our streetscape. We deal with trees. People call in about trees and their concerns. We manage our water quality because this community values the environment. We provide that service. There are facts that are floating around: 40% turnover, 15% below the median salary range in Northern Virginia. We're the lowest median salary in Northern Virginia, and our salaries haven't increased since 2009. Our budgets are a reflection of our community's values. Let's make sure that this is a reflection of how we value our worker community. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker slip I have is from Mr. James Brooks, followed by Mr. Joe Hodges.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members, and citizens of Falls Church, as well as Mr. Shields, the city manager. I'm James Brooks. I'm a City of Falls Church employee, and I'm also a member of the Employee Advisories Council. As an Employee Advisory Council, I, along with my fellow members of the council, have seen a reasonable proposal originally proposed by Mr. Shields to increase our pay, which has been used to temporarily sustain employee compensation in the past during our distressed economic times. While employees were not completely satisfied with the bonus pay, it was considered a reasonable measure and also a temporary solution. As the general economic input has improved, the city manager proposed a reasonable increase in compensation for FY13. Unfortunately, the current proposal calls for a 0% net increase in pay for most of our employees. I may be repeating what Mr. Whitstrom, and I'm sure maybe a few of my other colleagues have mentioned before. what has been important, but it is worth repeating. The current proposal widens the ongoing disparity between school employees and general government employees. If the current proposal stands, employees are asking the question, are our leaders saying, am I not as worthy as a school employee? Despite the current disparity between the schools and general employees, the larger and more important disparities between Falls Church City employees and employees from other municipal jurisdictions. There is currently a 15% disparity between our city employees in median pay and median local government employee salary. If you don't believe me, I request that you examine our compensation levels through a third-party classification study. Last year I spoke to this body saying of my dream of being a part of this community, and now is fading. Today, I could say the same story of my family trying to be a part of the city, but compensation is also a major part in hindering my ability to live here. I ask you to think of these questions. Can our world-class employees seek employment elsewhere for reasonable compensation? I also ask you this, Ms. Berry, Ms. Gardner, Mr. Webb, Mr. Baruch, and Mr. Snyder. Will our world-class employees seek reasonable compensation elsewhere? How this vote will affect our ability to serve the public in the future is up to you. I ask you, please do the right thing. And also, please join me in thanking not only for our citizens of Falls Church who are wonderful, but also our world-class employees. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker slip I have is from Mr. Richard Parker, followed by Mr. Gary Fuller.
Good evening. Thanks for giving me an opportunity to speak, Mr. Mayor, council members. All right. My name is Joe Hodges, and I'm up here to briefly speak about kind of the new Falls Church, because I have 3 months experience working here, and I just wanted to give you an idea of my perspective real quickly and kind of my hopes, because I was self-employed for 17 years and kind of did my own schedule and whatnot, and I joined this group because I was really impressed with the people that I interviewed with, and also the size and the specialness of what is Falls Church, because it's definitely a unique thing inside the Beltway. But the reality of it is, it seems to me that I'm a little surprised by what I've learned as a new employee, that apparently everybody behind me and some that couldn't be here tonight were on a pay freeze for 3 years. And I understand that from having my own business and running the books for a functioning company with employees, and you have to look after them. But and so I guess I'm more or less suggesting that maybe the perspective should be what your people do for your city, and what is your city. And I would say it's not necessarily the buildings, it's not necessarily the roadways, it's actually all your employees. And I think from my personal experience, I'm the new person in here, and I want to stay here. This isn't something I wanted to be worried about. I'm all in, and I've noticed that there's a lot of different hat wearing. I noticed a lot of people don't have staff to help them do, there's not a very good division of labor, and these are all things I would expect in a small office. But I certainly don't fit my job position in the Department of Planning and Services. I actually am a permit tech, but I come with a tremendous wealth of experience in the private sector doing many, many other things. And so I have the advantage of being able to wear a couple of extra hats, and those aren't on my job description per se. And so I think you should just maybe consider taking stock of what all these people do on a daily basis, multitasking, not having the staff that makes things easier to move forward. And really, I would just consider that we essentially do more per capita in the permit office than Fairfax County last year, and that's 1.6%. I think we did the easy math on how many permits they issued last year. And being in the permit section, that was pretty surprising to me. And I'll leave it with that, but I'm happy to be here. I would just have you consider what your future is going to look like because I want to be in it. Thank you for your time.
Thanks. The next speaker slip I have is from Mr. Richard Parker, followed by Mr. Gary Fuller.
Evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Richard Parker, the Director of Human Resources. I just want to say tonight, I'll be brief. I look forward to our conversations this Thursday, a fuller discussion about employee compensation. It is an honor to be the Director of Human Resources for all these fine employees that are here tonight. You've heard from many of their stories, and there's many others that could be told. As the manager said earlier, we will be having a celebration of our Employee of the Year on April the 23rd. However, tonight I wanted to just an opportunity to also hear from the employees that were nominated then, and they can tell you a little bit about some of the ways that that they've made a difference in the city in 2011. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Gary Fuller, and thank you very much.
Thank you. We just wanted to introduce to you, we have 4 of the 7 employees that were nominated this year. And we have Sue Riker, the Senior Administrative Assistant to HHS right here. We have Kevin Denton, who is home with his family tonight. He's the Human Services Specialist. We also have Anita Eckel, the Senior Administrative Assistant in Public Utilities, right here. Myself, I'm in the Department of Development Services. And Sandy Ingram Salang, the Executive Assistant to the City Manager. It's her birthday, so she's home tonight. And also Gerald McDonald, the Building Inspector for Development Services. He has a sick child, so he wasn't able, but he had planned to be here. And then Wendy Block-Sanford, Principal Planner and Transportation Program Manager of Development Services. So we're all here tonight. In terms of Sue Riker, Sue was nominated for her leading role in managing the Community Services Fund, administering the Fair Wheels program, and supporting the Community Development Block Grant Program, monitoring interjurisdictional contracts with Fairfax County. Kevin Denton, the housing specialist, was nominated for his work in affordable housing for organizing a regional housing expo that was held this past weekend, and a new home loan program to help city residents for affordable homes. Anita Eckel, Senior Administrative Assistant to Public Works, was nominated for outstanding performance managing the Cherry Hill Farmhouse lead paint stabilization and abatement project.
Gary Fuller. Gary received his nomination for his work on several complex special exceptions, rezoning, site plans, and various subdivisions within the city.
Sandy Ingram Saleh, Executive Assistant to City Manager, was nominated for picking up some responsibilities for the vacant CTO position. The duties included processing all software, hardware, and maintenance agreements secured by the IT support contractor. And Jerry McDonald, the Building Inspector with Development Services, he was nominated for transforming our conference room, the Laurel Room, with his carpentry skills. And what we thought was a very rundown-looking room, he has now turned into the nicest conference room in City Hall. If you haven't seen it yet, you have to take a look at it. And these were all carpentry improvements that he did outside of his building inspections duties that he continued to inform. Lastly, Wendy Block-Sanford, the Principal Planner and Transportation Program Manager for Development Services, she was nominated for outstanding work on a multimodal pedestrian plan, the PED plan, and American Disabilities Act Transportation Plan, ADA plan. Collectively, our comments tonight are that the city employees are just these city employees up here tonight and that were nominated are just an example of the exceptional work that all the city employees do every day to make the city a special place. While these employees are fortunate enough to be nominated and recognized for their work, they're just a few examples of the great work that's done every day throughout the city by all the employees of City of Falls Church. These nominees typify the excellent public service and programs that are being provided to the community and the public by all the city employees. The city employees diligently perform their work at a very high level on a day-to-day basis, not just working 9 to 5, but weekends, at nights, in the rain, bad weather, and emergencies. We are public servants. It's not just a job, it's what we do. We call it pride, we call it dedication, or just passion. We have chosen to work for local government and are dedicated to serving the public at the highest level. You've heard the numbers and seen the comparison tables in terms of employee composition. You know we've fallen woefully behind in terms of compensation compared to other localities in the area, that city employees have not had a permanent salary raise for 3 years, and that our take-home pay is actually less than it was 3 years ago due to increased benefit cost. The last 3 budget cycles have been difficult for the council and the employees, and we all realize that. Fortunately, this year we're going into a budget process with an improved financial climate. However, the preliminary budget guidance contemplates no real salary increase in take-home pay for city employees. As city employees, we just want to be compensated for the hard work. Is that really too much to ask? It really feels like you don't really value what we do, and it feels disappointing. And is that really the message you're telling us? Because that's the message we're hearing going into the budget. We know you value the work we do. Then is it too much to ask to be compensated fairly and equitably? Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker slip I have is from Mr. Robert Goff.
Good evening, Council. I'm Robert Goff, Superintendent of Operations for Public Utilities. I'm not here to talk about myself. I'm here to talk about the fine employees that I've had the privilege to supervise for the last 31 years. I'm here to talk about the teachers who deserve every dime they get. I believe in that. I believe the police officers of Falls Church also deserve every dime they get. I'm not here to talk about public utilities, although I could spend hours talking about public utilities. A fine group of people work for me, and I've been involved with them for 31 years. I'm here to talk about the city as a whole. We have a great group of people working for us, whether it be a police officer, whether it be a public works staff, or whether it be public utilities. They work hard for you daily. I have personally met all 5 of you up there and worked with you closely on different things. Whether it be snow removal, water breaks, sewer backups, whether it be Isabel, whether it be major storm cleanups. We're always there to help you out, to help the citizens of Falls Church out. I ask of you tonight is that you give us what we deserve. All we're asking for is the $1,800. Keep that in consideration. Know the hard work that we give you and the citizens of Falls Church. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Goff. Those are all the speaker slips I have. I'm going to close this item up for public comment and hear comments from council before we go ahead and take the vote. Ms. Gardner.
Thank you. First of all, I want to thank, and I'm sure we'll all thank each and every one of you for coming out tonight. And the message is loud and clear, and I want to let you know that I will be working to make sure that you not only get the 3% that's built in, but you will get additional compensation so that your salaries will be seen as an increase and you will have additional money to use as you need to in your family life. So I make that commitment to you. I will try my hardest to make sure it is a compensation and not just an additional bonus. And I have ideas of where I would like to see that money come. So for those, the person that said she wants to know, where the money's going to, I plan on looking at places where we have either additional personnel going. I've also talked about some things that we're spending, some material things that we're spending money on, but I'm also looking at money that we plan on putting more towards a general fund in our fund balance, which I see as a savings account. But in all honesty, I believe our money should go into the investment and we should be paying our bills before we put all of our money into a savings account. And you are our bills. You are the people that are working for us and the people that need to have the compensation that you rightly deserve. So I just want to lay that out for you to let you know that that's what I'm going to be working for, and those are my plans. And again, thank you all very much for coming out, and I hope we can deliver for you.
Thank you. Other council members? Mr. Webb? What? Comment, if you'd come forward. I apologize if I missed your speaker slip. please come forward if you just state your name, and then we'll have 2 minutes. I'm going to go ahead and open this up for one last comment.
Thank you, sir. My name is David Harris, and I am an employee for the City of Falls Church for 5 years. I am also a resident. I have 2 young children, David and Amber, who are back there, and they attend this fine school system we have here in Falls Church. The gas prices are 20 to 30% higher in the city, whereas if you go a mile down the road outside, it's less. Also, the food prices are higher, restaurant taxes are higher. And as city employees, we provide an excellent and safe, courteous, and quick responses to all problems that face Falls Church, our little city. We provide efficient and rapid responses to problems and near catastrophes that the city may encounter, such as water breaks, floods, the blizzard of 2010, snow removal, sewer backups, and power outages and other various problems and emergencies. We are directly responsible to keep this place, me and my family, and yours, beautiful, safe, and efficient. We are paid 15% less than all other municipalities in this region. And at 3%, we will still be paid 12% less than our competitors. If this was a football game and the City of Falls Church lost to Arlington County or Fairfax County by 12 or 15 points, it would not be considered a competitive game worth watching, would it? We have been without a pay increase for 4 years, and at 3% is still not enough, but that's my opinion. We should be getting at least 9%, but at least then the football game would be worth watching. I do not think there's a person here who thinks or knows we are not doing our job or serving our customers and community and representing our city 100%. The right hand is supposed to wash the left hand. Well, the left hand is awful dirty and is about to become infected. But we are not here to single out or throw anyone under the bus. We are here to let everyone know that we want to ride the bus. That means that we want to be able to make a decent living for our families here in this little city we call Falls Church. I think it is time for my fellow employees not only to be heard, but it's time to be seen. With my brothers in public utilities and public works and all of Falls Church city employees, please stand so that we can be seen by everyone. We are the one that make this city happen. And personally, I feel that all Falls Church employees are worthy employees that like to see the problems solved and customers safe and happy. It makes us feel important and appreciated. We also should be shown that we are important and appreciated and not taken for granted. Life is much bigger and meaningful than that. And can anyone look us in the eye and tell us we do not deserve that pay increase immediately? Is there one? Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments, and thanks for all of our employees and citizens who spoke at the public hearing tonight. We do appreciate your comments, and I'm sure that myself and my fellow council members are going to be taking them seriously as we begin our budget deliberations. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing portion of this, and hear comments from council members. Mr. Webb.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to take a moment to thank everyone for coming out this evening. Many of you as city employees I've had the opportunity to work with on different occasions. Sergeant Carter was one of the first police officers I met when I did a ride-along to kind of get a feel for what happens in our city after dark. I know what happens during the day, but what happens in the evenings. Steve standing in the back there when it snowed 2 years ago, Snowmageddon, helped myself and many of our neighbors dig our cars out that had gotten plowed in, but he brought the truck right by and moved snow, which made our lives a lot easier because we would have been out there shoveling for about 2.5 hours to get the 4 or 5 cars out. So I know what our city employees do, and I appreciate everything that they do for us. On another note, I understand where you are too, asking for additional compensation. Last year, when the compensation question came up, knowing in my position being on council, at that point we couldn't afford to do anything that was going to go against our pension. So I made concerted effort to work with my colleagues, and we gave a raise. Wish we were known a little bit sooner, that made sure that all the employees of the city received that, but you all did receive that, and I worked hard and brought my colleagues along to be able to do that for you. I work for the state government. We've not received a pay raise in pretty much the exact same amount of time that you all have. I've only, in my 7 years working for a university that's a state institution, I have received one pay raise in my 7 years working there. So I get where you're coming from, and I share your pain and what you're going through. So it's my pledge to you to work as hard as I can with other members and my colleagues here to find ways to give you all additional compensation. On my side, I know I'm not going to get another raise this year. They're talking bonus again down in Richmond for state employees, but I feel obligated to, as a member of this council, and knowing what you all are going through, as I do the same thing that my take-home pay has continuously gone down over the last several years, to do my part to make sure that we find ways to better compensate you all for the hard work that you do, that you're doing 2 and 3 tasks that you have continued to do, and you've not complained about it. And I think it's time for us to look for ways to try to do our best to compensate you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Webb. Other council members? Vice Mayor Snyder?
Thanks a lot. The request was a minute ago to look at everybody in the eye, and that's what I'm doing now. I've seen so many of you in so many different contexts, whether cleaning up the city or out with water crews from time to time, watching the hard work that you do. So your work is very much respected. And we will be looking at the data that was presented tonight, looking at the budget, see where we've got some opportunities to provide better compensation. In terms of context, they didn't call it the Great Recession for nothing. Everybody got hurt by this thing. So the question is, are we beginning to see enough daylight in the right way that we can provide for improved compensation, not only this year but in the future? It doesn't do any good to provide compensation this year and then not next year and then fall back, or provide compensation but underfund the pension. And by the way, the city, I think in all fairness, the city has done a very responsible job of maintaining your pensions. You look across this country and public sector pensions are a disaster area. So we have kept the employees very much in mind as we've worked to maintain that pension. I do hear you. I understand what you're saying. And I will do what I can possibly do as we go through this budget process to look for opportunities to provide increased compensation for you. I don't know how that process is going to turn out at this point. I will fight false economies, things that give a good impression, but the reality is they don't do the job, and they don't set the city in a long-term sustainable context, because that doesn't benefit you, the citizens, or anyone else. I will also not agree to false economies of cutting emergency management, for example, in order to provide increased salaries, because I don't think that's a responsible trade-off. But I will look very, very hard for ways we can reward you better than we've been able to do for your service, which I frankly believe is second to none. So thank you for that, and you have my commitment to continue to work in that regard. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Snyder. Again, I wanted to thank all of our employees for all the hard work that they put into making the city run. And the statement that was made by one of the speakers, you are the heart and soul of the city. You are what makes the city function day in, day out. It's not us, and it's not the city manager or the assistant city manager, but it's the individual employees that are out day in, day out, many of which I've had the benefit of receiving your hard work. Some of you I've gotten to know over the years as an individual resident of the city and also as a council member. So thank you for all that you do. Moving forward on this budget, a couple points I want to make. First is I do think that it's important for us to be mindful of the fund balance in meeting our policy goals. Without it, we could end up falling into situations that we've been in before, such as salary reductions and staffing reductions. And I certainly am going to pledge not to put us in a situation where that's going to happen again. Moving forward on compensation issues, that is coming up on our work session on the 29th. I'm certainly going to be looking for ways of doing more to reward our outstanding employees. What that is going to end up looking like, I don't know that yet until we look at the numbers and understand where we have some flexibility to pay potentially for greater compensation. But I will be looking at ways of doing that. But I have to also say I'm going to be balancing it with all the other budget needs that we have. And again, I don't want the city to be in a situation where we have inequities in either our tax rate, our property taxes, or other taxes that could end up being harmful to the city in the long run and harmful to our employees. And third, I am going to be focusing in on infrastructure. I've been saying this since 2008, that I think that we need to continue to improve our stormwater management system. So I am going to be looking to determine if there's ways that we can do more on that front as well through this budget process. And finally, I do think that we need to take a holistic approach to our compensation scheme that's outside of a budgetary sole process. So I'm sure that we're going to be discussing as a council whether we want to take up a more detailed compensation study so we can better understand what our structure looks like compared to other localities. I don't think some of the aggregate numbers that have been presented and discussed this evening are very helpful without understanding the details of what that looks like. So I'll be looking forward to those discussions as well, at least putting a structure in place to begin to look at our compensation as compared to other jurisdictions similarly situated to us. So with that, I'm going to close this item. If we can please have the vote on TO, I believe we're on TO 12-6.
On TO 12-6, the tax rate ordinance, Ms. Berry?
Yes.
Ms. Gardner?
Yes.
Mr. Snyder?
Yes.
Mr. Webb?
Yes.
Mayor Baruch?
Yes.
Thank you, council.
Ms. Bischoff, you'd read, or actually you've already read the next item. If I can get a motion on the next item, please.
Okay. I move to adopt TO 12-07 on first reading, schedule public hearings on April 11 and April 23rd, 2012.
Thank you. If I can get a second.
Second.
That's Ms. Gardner on the second. I'd like to open this item up for public comment. I didn't receive any speaker slips on this item. Are there any members of the public that wish to address this item? Okay. Not seeing any, I'm going to close this item up for public comment. Council, any comments on this item? Okay. Any comments on this item?
On the revenue item, page 4 of 6, the transfer from the school operating fund, the 186, that's the debt service that goes back and forth. Is that right? And Mr. Kalin had raised this point earlier about how that number should be shown. And may I presume from the fact that it shows up here as a revenue item, you have exercised your discretion to show it as okay then. All right, thank you. And then follow up on that. Following up on that, sorry, I'm the only one who laughs when it comes to budgets, I guess. Following up on that, the transfer, the school transfer, did we decide that we were going to also show how much of debt service was in fact school-oriented, and so that we had a better understanding of what revenues actually went from the general fund to schools?
That has been requested, and we will have the information as we go through our budget deliberations, but we did not include it in the ordinance.
It's in one of the, I think it's in the question responses from last week. So that breakout is in there. I think 74% of the debt is on the school side. But in terms of presenting it here in the ordinance, this layout in the ordinance tracks almost exactly our CAFR. That's the layout, and our CAFR is per GASB rules, and so this isn't the place where it would be broken out.
Any other questions, Councilor, or comments? Mr. Shields, anything else on this item? Okay. Why don't we go ahead and close this item? If we can have the vote, please called.
Ms. Berry?
Yes.
Ms. Gardner?
Yes.
Mr. Snyder?
Yes.
Mr. Webb?
Yes.
Mayor Baruch?
Yes.
Thank you, council. The next item, I think, is the CIP, is that correct?
It's a CIP, that's correct.
You need a motion?
If I can get a motion on TO 12-8, please.
Mr. Mayor, I move to adopt TO 12-08 on first reading, schedule public hearings for April 11 and April 23, 2012, second reading for April 23, 2012, and advertise the same according to law.
Thank you. If I can get a second.
Second.
Is Mr. Webb on the second? Mr. Shields, do we have a staff report on this?
On the CIP, we're planning to have a work session on it on April 2nd. We do not plan to have a staff report tonight.
Thank you. Let me go ahead and open this item up for public comment. Are there any members of the public that wish to speak to this item? Not seeing any, and we did not receive any written speaker slips. Ms. Bouchard, did we receive any written comments on this? I'm going to go ahead and close this to public comment. Council, any comments on this before we take the vote? Ms. Berry.
For members of council who may not have been following the correspondence between myself and Mr. Shields and Ms. Mester, I just wanted to raise again publicly the issue of LEED certification. And I realize I've talked to staff about this. There are obvious costs associated with LEED certification, whether it's LEED Silver or just LEED certification for both the TJ expansion and the City Hall. There is a difference of opinion as to, and I think an honest difference of opinion as to whether or not the TJ expansion can qualify for LEED certification. But that aside, I still think it's important, whether it happens in FY13 or FY13 going forward, FY14 and so forth, to make a serious financial commitment to LEED certification. We've talked about it as a central tenet in the environmental and economic sustainability in our city. We talk about it as a core value. Council is moving forward on putting a document together that certainly sets forward Council's strong feeling about LEED certification as being really keeping step with our neighbors, as well as for other reasons. So, I just want to make it. I'm not necessarily quite ready to cede the argument yet. I don't want to call a halt to all the important ongoing construction endeavors, but I do want Council to seriously consider, if not in FY13, certainly in FY14 going forward, that we build in to our expenditures funding appropriate for the city's public buildings to be LEED certified from here on out.
Ms. Berry, any other comments? If we can go ahead and have the vote called. And I believe as far as the policy goes at this point, I believe that's in the works, or should be in the works, to bring the LEED certification up moving forward. So I think really the question is on the CIP, and I don't think that we've, from what I understand, Ms. Berry, from your comments, is that we don't necessarily have a definitive answer. There may be some disagreements on what can be done and can't be done.
We have some fairly good financial data. Where we're not in lockstep is sort of the dueling architect. One architect who works for the SHW firm says yes, it is possible. The same architect says it isn't. Another, it's I don't know how far we want to press it, but I'm certainly not willing to say that it's a foregone conclusion that LEED can't be. I think it is. It's a matter of maybe perhaps additional conversation with schools, and then of course figuring out how we're going to pay for it.
Great. Thank you, Ms. Berry, and thank you for spearheading looking at some of these issues for Council. Much appreciated, and thanks for your work on the ESC as well as our liaison. Ms. Gardner.
Just a quick comment. I know last year we kind of went through the CIP and went kind of quickly and missed some things that the schools had called for in their CIP. And I'm assuming that when we go through the CIP, we're going to be much more diligent in regards to exactly what the schools are asking for, because there were some questionable, at least I thought questionable things in the CIP, along with stuff that the city has in the CIP. But specifically, I know last year we kind of missed some of their needs, and it was kind of a foregone conclusion. Just want to make sure those expenses that the staff is, well, we are paying attention, but the staff is bringing those to light, so we're not surprised after the fact.
There will be the school board's work session on April 12th, and that will be when we'll do the school CIP, in addition to the April 2nd, when we'll do the full general government CIP. And the tab 3 of your full CIP notebook includes everything that was requested, even if it was not recommended and adopted by the Planning Commission.
Thank you. All right. Ms. Bischoff, you'd go ahead and call the vote, please.
On TO 12-08, Ms. Berry?
Yes.
Ms. Gardner?
Yes.
Mr. Snyder?
Yes.
Mr. Webb?
Yes.
Mayor Baruch?
Yes.
Thank you, Council. Council, the next line before you is TO 12-05. This is an ordinance to amend Chapter 42, Utilities, to revise sewer rates.
Council, the ordinance before you would raise sewer rates from the current $7.25 to $7.91 per 1,000 gallons. And this is the second year of what is a 3-year plan to increase sewer rates in order to meet the increased debt service that we've undertaken for plant improvements at the Arlington and Alexandria treatment plants that were made to comply with EPA requirements for the Chesapeake Bay. Tracy Mower with Municipal Financial Services is here tonight just to present a very short presentation for the public on the sewer rate.
Good evening. Thank you for allowing us back. Before I get into the results of the sewer update, I'd just like to remind you of the initial study we completed. It was completed in February of 2011, and we computed the amount of revenues that needed to be required from your current customer base and compared those to the revenues you were collecting from your current rate structure in fiscal year 11. We noticed there was a significant shortfall, so we recommended a multi-year financial plan. That financial plan increased the amount of revenues you would be collecting. By doing that, we introduced a fixed charge per bill and also increased the usage charge per 1,000 gallons for customers. The city did pass the first year of the financial plan in fiscal year 12, and the results of the continuing update will be shown in the following slides. So since February 2011, we have received updated information from the city. We've received the fiscal year 11 actuals as well as the fiscal year 12 budget operating numbers. We've received your updated capital improvement plan as well as 2 additional existing debt service payments. We've continued to update with the miscellaneous revenues, as well as analyzing your actual fiscal year 10 and fiscal year 11 customer usage information. And we also wanted to show that we did implement the first year, fiscal year 12, of the financial plan, which was a $5 service charge per bill, as well as the unit rate going to $7.25 per 1,000 gallons. Putting those updated numbers updated documents into numbers, we show your operating costs and your capital costs, which give you your total revenue requirements. When we less out your miscellaneous revenues, we have your net revenue requirement that needs to be recovered from your customer base. In fiscal year 12, that will be $3.11 million, and that will grow to $3.97 million by fiscal year 15. The important thing to note on this slide is if we keep your revenues under their current structure as they are today, you will see a shortfall throughout the planning period. However, if you continue with the financial plan that is recommended, your sewer fund will become self-sustaining and revenues will meet expenses each year through fiscal year 15. So with that recommended rate structure, in fiscal year 13, your fixed charge would remain at $5 per bill, and your unit rate per 1,000 gallons would go up to $7.91 per 1,000 gallons. What we show in that bottom table is your customer breakdown. So 6% of your customers use 0 to 3,000 gallons per quarter, 10% use 3,000 to 6,000, and so on. I've highlighted 12,000 to 15,000 gallons because the majority of your customers fall within that block usage. And just to clarify, the number on the left of your quarterly usage column is what that current bill is based off of. For example, from 12,000 to 15,000 gallons, your current bill for fiscal year 12 for 15,000 gallons per quarter is $113.75. If you follow the recommendation for fiscal year 13, it will increase by $9.90 per quarter, up to $123.65. So in conclusion, we recommend that you annually update your financial model. We also recommend that you monitor your customer usage annually, as a majority of your revenues do come from your usage rate is actually over 97%. So a large swing in usage would affect the amount of revenues you would be collecting every year. And we also recommend that you continue with the financial plan through the coming years. Questions?
Questions? Thank you.
Okay.
If I can get a motion, please, and then we'll open this up for public comment.
Mr. Mayor, I move to adopt TO 12-05 on first reading, advertised according to law, and schedule second reading and public hearing for April 9, 2012.
Thank you. If I can get a second?
Second.
Thank you. I'd like to open this item up for public comment. Don't have any speaker slips. Are there any members of the public that wish to speak to this item? Not seeing any. Ms. Bouchard, did we receive any written comments? I'm going to close this item up for public comment. Council, any comments before we take the vote? Mr. Snyder.
I wonder if our consultant could tell us again, why are we raising the rates in simple terms? Why is your proposal to raise the rates?
Because your costs are increasing, so you need to raise the amount of revenues you're collecting from your current customers.
And the costs are coming from where and why?
The costs are coming from your actual operating budget in fiscal year 11 and your fiscal year 12 updated budget numbers. It's coming from increased existing debt service payments. There were two additional existing debt issuances from the initial study. It's coming from your capital improvement plan. Those costs added together is your net revenue requirements.
So it's coming from maintaining the system, and then
correct.
Have the treatment costs gone up?
I believe, I would have to look into that to give you an exact number, but I do believe that treatment costs have gone up. I can't tell you the exact amount they've gone up.
Okay.
One of the major issues that all the sewer utilities in Northern Virginia and the Chesapeake watershed have dealt with is the increased treatment costs to meet EPA requirements. And these are all for the benefit of the Chesapeake Bay. It's probably the city's largest and most important environmental program right now, and most expensive. Our contribution to these plant upgrades to meet the higher levels of phosphate and nitrogen removal, which will prevent algae blooms in the dead zones that kill fish in the Chesapeake Bay. So it is a very important initiative, but it is expensive, and that is really the heart of what's behind these rate increases.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other questions by council or comments? I'm not seeing any. Why don't we go ahead and have the vote, please?
On TO 12-04, Ms. Berry?
Yes.
Ms. Gardner?
Yes.
Mr. Snyder?
Yes.
Mr. Webb?
Yes.
Mayor Baruch?
Yes.
Thank you, council. The next item before you, council, is TR 12-09, resolution to adopt the City of Falls Church pedestrian, bicycle, and traffic calming strategic implementation plan, excuse me. Tripping over that.
Council, Wendy Black Sanford will provide a brief, about a 5-minute presentation to the council, noting the fact that we spent a lot of time at work session, but for the community. Have a brief presentation tonight and referral back to the presentation last week, which is on Granicus. But I'll note at the outset also that we have had initial comment on the pedestrian plan, and we do want to provide some make sure that our statement of intent is clear, and Wendy will be speaking to some of those items that we've been working on over the last week in conjunction with members of council and Councilmember Dave Snyder in particular. Wendy.
Thanks. Good evening, Mayor Baruch, members of the City Council. This evening, the City Council is requested to refer the pedestrian, bicycle, and traffic calming strategic implementation plan to boards and commissions for review and comment. I'm joined here tonight at the podium by Bill Hicks, who is the Director of Public Works, who will provide some brief remarks after I'm finished. As Wyatt mentioned, I gave a lengthy presentation about this project last week at the work session. That presentation is available on the city's website through Granicus. Tonight, I will just briefly summarize the project and the public process from this point forward. The Pedestrian, Bicycle, and Traffic Calming Strategic Implementation Plan is a policy document. It provides the city with a decision-making framework to identify locations for new sidewalks, repairs for existing sidewalks, traffic calming improvements on collector and arterial streets, and spot improvements. The primary document is the large 11 by 17 pedestrian plan. There are 3 supporting documents: the Self-Evaluation Update and Americans with Disabilities Act Transition Plan for Public Rights-of-Way, the Safe Routes to School Travel Plan, and the Existing Conditions Report. The PED Plan, which is the larger document that I'm referring to, it provides an objective methodology to address deficiencies and concerns that were identified through the public comments, as well as the extensive existing conditions inventory that identified safety hazards, non-compliance with the Americans with Disabilities Act, and inconsistency and gaps in our pedestrian network and in our bicycle network. The public input for this project included upfront public meetings, a second public meeting halfway through the process, and a web tool that generated over 700 public comments. Appendix D in your packet shows every public comment received on this project, as well as a response indicating how the plan addresses that comment. In addition, this project was guided by a council-appointed committee, the Pedestrian, Bicycle, and Traffic Calming Advisory Committee. This committee is comprised of 4 at-large members, 4 representatives from other city boards and commissions, and a representative from the Safe Routes to School Advisory Committee, which is a separate committee dedicated to the Safe Routes to School component of this project. The members of this group are Russell Wodiska, Charlie O'Hara, David Tartar, Paul Baldino, Officer Steve Rao, Annie Rhodes Klein, Patrick Fry, Lynn Rothman, and Walter Werfel. And I'd like to recognize Lynn Rothman, who has stuck through this lengthy evening to be with us tonight. The Ped Bike Advisory Committee has met 9 times and has been a critical component of this project. The group has reviewed the data, informed priorities, developed the methodology and the ranking criteria, and provided input and feedback on the recommendations. I want to thank them for their hard work on this project. Every policy and every project that is in the plan has been discussed, reviewed, and modified by this team of city residents that you appointed for this project. The project team on the staff side included planning, public works, Bill Hicks, recreation and parks, Danny Schlitt, and the assistant city manager and ADA compliance officer, Cindy Mester. This team worked with the transportation consulting firm of KLS. I want to specifically point out the close working relationship between planning and public works, who will manage the implementation of this plan. This plan was developed with on-the-ground expertise, so the recommendations are implementable and realistic. This effort was the first to inventory every city street, organize that information, and create a methodology to make meaningful improvements to the city's transportation infrastructure. The city has not built a sidewalk in a new location in over 30 years. The city does not have any bicycle lanes or shared lanes. This plan creates a network of new sidewalks, new bike routes, and other improvements to make our streets safe for walking to schools, parks, metro stations, bus routes, commercial corridors, and other destinations. The most important components of this plan are the guiding principles and policies that the team developed to implement projects, and they are briefly the Complete Streets Policy. This states that the city is committed to providing a network that includes options for all modes of travel. Secondly, the Sidewalk Policy, which states that all residential streets shall have a sidewalk on one side of the street, and all collectors and arterials should have 2. Third, walking and bicycling goals and strategies. This plan sets 6 new goals related to walking and biking, as well as strategies to achieve those goals. A project prioritization methodology. This plan outlines a detailed and objective methodology to evaluate locations for improvements. And lastly, design guidelines for pedestrian and bicycle facilities. These set minimum widths for sidewalks, landscape buffers, travel lanes, vehicular travel lanes, and bicycle lanes. Using these policies and the methodology, the team developed prioritized lists of projects to complete over the next 20 years. These projects range from small to large. They include new sidewalks in 76 streets, reconstruction of 35 miles of existing sidewalks to comply with the Americans with Disabilities Act, bicycle lanes, improvements to the W&OD trail crossings, off-street trail connections, pedestrian countdown signals, and intersection improvements, just to name a few. It's important to note that the improvements will be made within the existing curb-to-curb width wherever possible. It is not the city's intention to remove retaining walls, fences, or other items in order to build sidewalks, even if those items are located in the city's right-of-way. The conceptual designs that are shown in the plan are examples of how the methodologies can be implemented. They are not final designs. Individual projects will go through a design and engineering process that is separate from this plan. In determining the preferred design option, the city will engage the public to discuss and decide the proposed changes. What this plan does do is lay out the policies and methodologies to make decisions. Adoption of this plan is adoption of policies and of guiding principles for decision making. In terms of the timing, tonight kicks off the formal public review process, which is 45 days. There'll be a public meeting in the middle of that period on April 19th to present the plan and receive comments. We'll come back to you after that public meeting to tell you what we heard with the anticipated adoption date of this plan on May 29th. At this point, I'd like to pass it over to Bill Hicks, with whom I worked very closely on this plan, who has some remarks.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council. It's been a great pleasure to work with Wendy and her leadership as we move forward with this project. I can't imagine a planning process that was any more objective than what we've tried to do with this. And I think the end result, which is out for public comment after today, is this comprehensive approach that builds a framework that helps us out of paralysis. We have roads without sidewalks right now, and we haven't built any in 30 years. This document and the process to get here has allowed us to look at that objectively. And that's really, it's so critical to helping us move forward. And as Wendy spoke earlier, the projects that are in there are examples, they're proposals. Each individual project, and it's not just the few that are highlighted with conceptual designs, but all of the projects where we're going to build sidewalks will become individual projects that require engineering design. This is a planning level exercise. It's excellent for what it was for, but at some point you have to build the thing. And when you build it, you have to get to engineering design, and that includes communication with the community. So with that, I think we should move forward and certainly hear public comment on the document.
So any questions? Ms. Berry?
Yeah, not so much a question, but a concern that the staff presentation has begun to allay in my particular case. I spent several hours actually this weekend going through this this plan. You know, a very impressive piece of work and robust, and you know, it had all the hallmarks of excellent citizen participation. And you know, as a bike commuter, and cover girl, at least a couple of pictures of me in my bike shorts, which should kill the plan right now, frankly. But you know, I was obviously very, very interested in this conceptually. But I have to say that when I spent quite a bit of time with the plan, I began to be concerned about what I considered its rather significant administrative reach. I read this plan thinking that what was being laid out was a citizen committee essentially rerouting traffic, you know, taking parking off the streets. You know, I was surprised at the level of detail that led me to believe that what we were adopting was going to be something very different than what you've said here. So my concern was that even though you had a process that had terrific matrices and decision-making tools, decision support systems, and that you have created a decision support system to help make decisions, on into the future. The conclusions that the data seem to have driven you to would not have been the conclusions that the data would have driven me to. And so what I was concerned about is, are the data driving you to a set of conclusions that when you sit back and think about it and vet it with the public, you're going to get great public participation? Part of me thinks possibly not. Part of me thinks that, and I don't know this, but I think you're going to hear this, part of me thinks that which sounds reasonable and is a huge priority driven by these data may not in fact be received that way by members of the public once you start moving forward. So my overall conclusion was, if indeed what we're doing is supporting a decision support system and policies, I'm prepared to do that. But I just want to make sure that in all of this implementation, as these plans roll out, that there is a systematic and sympathetic methodology in which the community can push back on, say, a priority that's been described by the city, that there's a public comment ability that's fully transparent, and that the public has a robust opportunity to engage the city. That's it.
I want to make sure that staff has an opportunity to respond to that if they have any comments on that.
I do. I want to point out that the reason why there are examples is because there had to be. You had to test the methodology, and there was no way to do this without looking at individual streets. And so what is in there are examples, and I think I've gone through that. I don't want to spend too much time, but I do want to point out the flow chart on page 86 of the plan, which I think is one of the most important pieces of this, because it talks about how you put it all together. And there is very clearly an orange rectangle in there that says engage the public. And so that is built into the process for every project.
And if I could just note, in terms of the staff approach on this, the staff that is before you tonight are the staff that work with the public on these projects, and they do have tremendous experience in getting things done in Falls Church, and what that engagement looks like and feels like, and how to do it effectively, lessons learned. There's one time when I didn't follow Wendy's advice on a project, and that was a very bad thing, and it caused lots of unhappiness on the street. And that's a lesson that I learned. I won't name the street, but I think most council members are familiar with it. But that experience, I think, is important, and it went into this plan of knowing what it's like to engage with people who care so much about what their street looks like and feels like, and how the street frontage is, and the bushes that might be there, or anything that might impact it. I think that sensitivity is built into the thinking of the task force and the staff all the way through.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to make a motion, but before I do, I wanted to thank the staff and thank the citizens group that worked very hard on this. It was an honor for me to work along with Councilmember Webb and others to begin to line up the funding regionally for this. And I think I walked around maybe in the first walk around that Wendy did when she first started surveying the city. I think the survey was very, very important, because I think it's going to help us identify really safety-related priorities that we need to get to, whether it's striping intersections or the ramps to make it possible for disabled people to navigate the city. I think where the study began and the work began to go a bit off track was when we made very large policy leaps. One in particular, to put sidewalks without a demonstrated need for them, that will have a number of unintended consequences depending on the circumstances. If the sidewalk needs to go on the city right-of-way outside the curb line, for example, I looked at a street I'm familiar with, Maple Street. If you just did that, you went beyond the curb line just a mere 5 feet, on the side of the street without a sidewalk, you would have to tear out 5 telephone poles and 12 mature trees. Nobody intends that, and I don't think the planners intended that, and yet that's a possible consequence. If, on the other hand, I'm just using this as an example because we had a petition from 53 people on Lincoln Avenue, and it may be true on a lot of the other streets. If, on the other hand, you moved the parking on, you moved the sidewalk onto the street, you'd eliminate on-street parking on one side of the street, and that not only is an inconvenience for the residents, but there are at least 10 people that park on that side of the street that go to State Theater events, so it also has a commercial impact. In addition, of course, by adding sidewalks, you're also adding impervious surface when we're trying to go in exactly the opposite direction, and you may have other unintended consequences in terms of water quality and managing water. So that's just one example. Now, how do you approach that? The other aspect here is cost. We have gotten some grants to get going on some of this, to do the plan and to start some of the work, and that's really good, and I'll work very, very hard representing the city to get additional grants. But it's coming, frankly, some of the policy decisions are so broad and the costs are so high that it begins to lose some credibility in not only my mind, but in the minds of some of our citizens. But I'm interested in this going forward. So what I will move is that we move the plan forward, consistent with the public comment, that we do so with the intent language, and I can read it all, there are 4 or 5 paragraphs that we've worked on, and that intent language be part of the plan, so it's not just somebody has to go back and look at our discussion tonight. And I think the effect of that will help people focus on the good parts of the plan and what we're trying to do here from a positive standpoint. But I do think it's important to get some of these specifically in the plan. So I would move that we move the PED plan forward, consistent with the with the various dates set, and I'll read through the language very, very quickly, just so it's a matter of record. At the beginning of the plan, or at an appropriate point, it would state, quote, "The improvements will be made with the existing curb-to-curb width whenever possible." The flow chart on page 86 and the text on page 88 address this as follows. Quote, "In some situations, the curb-to-curb width can be narrowed so that a new or wider sidewalk and landscape buffer can be accommodated within the existing active ROW. However, in other instances, this cannot happen and other alternatives must be considered. This evaluation should be guided by both the needs and the context of the street. The needs section of the plan, consider alternatives, explains how this process will work. The sentence that states, quote, "This evaluation shall be guided both by the needs and context of the street," means that it is not the city's intention to remove retaining walls, fences, or other items in order to build sidewalks, even if those items are located in the city ROW. In some cases, the context of the street may allow for us to use that unused city ROW without impacting people's property. On some streets, the houses are set far back, and the city ROW is a grassed area. In those cases, the context of the street will let us go behind the curb, although it's possible we would not even need to do that. Next point, the plan lays out the policies and methodology to make decisions. Adoption of this plan is adoption of those policies. Next point, the policies in this document will be implemented in a manner that considers all relevant factors, and there may be cases where it is not practical or beneficial to follow them. Next, individual projects will go through a design and engineering process separate from this plan. In determining the preferred design option, which may include one of the alternatives stated above, the city will engage the public and especially affected property owners to discuss and decide on the proposed changes. Finally, as part of the plan, the team developed a revised sidewalk policy that states that all residential streets should have at least one sidewalk and all collectors and arterials should have 2, subject to the above considerations and procedures. So I would move, what's the formal number here? I would move to refer TR 1209 and the attached pedestrian plan to boards and commissions for comment and schedule a public hearing and final adoption for May 29th, 2012, and that the language that was just read be made a part of the plan at the beginning.
Thank you. If I can get a second, please. Thank you. I'd like to open this item up for public comment. Are there any members of the public that wish to address this item? Please come forward, and if you would state your name for the record and your address, and you have 3 minutes, please.
Jason Cervenak, 427 Lincoln Avenue. I understand the policy and the plan here, and understand the concept that examples had to be made. However, examples were prioritized, so that's taking a little bit further than just making the examples out there. What I don't understand, and you might want to say it's a NIMBY attitude, but actually my backyard is the bike trail, and I prefer it if you're back there. So I don't understand the logic in taking bicycles and moving them 100 feet from the bike trail and running them parallel on a street that was actually prioritized as one of the top speed limit, or the one with the most speeding on it. So that's just all I had to say about that. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Are there other members of the public that wish to address this item? Okay. Not seeing any, Ms. Michelle. I believe that we had some some comments that were received in the last few days on this. If you would summarize them. Oh, you read those in the beginning. That's correct. My apologies. Council, any comments before we take the vote on the motion? Ms. Gardner?
Thank you. First of all, there's a lot of work that went into this plan, and there's some very good things, and I think the prioritization is very key, and the whole process is key. I also very much appreciate the previous gentleman who came forth from Lincoln Avenue and the gentleman who just spoke, just as that's one of those instances in the plan that when you think about a bike path on the street running parallel to the WNOD trail, which we already have established, doesn't seem to make as much sense. But I understand that this is a working, living document, comes up with suggestions. We work through them on a priority basis. I hope our priority basis starts with ADA compliance, so that, I mean, that to me is the number one top of the list things that we should prioritize. I'm interested in seeing what the next 45 days holds in regards to comments, any changes that are made in this plan, but the key, as was stated, is that it's the policy that allows us to therefore drive the discussion and gives us a way forward on things that we need to work on based on the public survey that was done showing what things are important in our community. So, you know, I'll be voting yes on this to move this forward, and then look forward to having it come back in May. Thank you.
Other council members? Ms. Berry?
Ms. Gardner just brought up a point that I don't know if I was sufficiently articulate about this earlier, but I think that the process, you know, there was a great deal of public input in the beginning, and I know because I was part of that public input. But it's sort of like making sausage. You know, we've got all these, you know, important things that citizens want to see happen. It goes into the machine. It goes into this set of matrices, and then it comes out. Here's the decision. You know, here's where those data are driving us. And that, as I say, that was my big issue as I read through this plan. I thought, wow, really, is that really where the data are driving us? And I had the same issue about the ADA compliance, too. I would have thought that would be absolutely number one on top of the list. And in fact, it is not the highest percentage. The highest percentage is sidewalk replacement in terms of percentage cost. It's not ADA, which I thought was interesting. I have a series of very specific questions. Do I send them to you, Wyatt? Would that be useful, or send them to Bill and Wendy?
Well, if you could do that, but CC me, that would be most
okay.
helpful. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Ms. Berry. Mr. Webb?
Thank you. I also want to say thank you to Wendy and all the citizens who've put in a lot of time on this. This has been a long-term process. This has gone over for 2 years. But I do, again, have some questions. Over the last couple days since the plan was presented, I've gotten a lot of comments from the Lincoln Avenue area with questions about removing the on-street parking and turning it into bike lanes. So this is just one of the many issues. But with this process going forward, over that 45-day comment period, it'll be plenty of opportunities, I think, for citizens to come give input on this particular plan. And it is a document that we will continue to use as a guiding piece of work, opposed to being, you know, one that we'll have to take all the different components of it. I think we'll take parts of it, prioritize those, and I agree the ADA compliance is kind of high on the scale there, but I think we do need to move forward and get some of that additional public comment who may not have had an opportunity until now to get that.
Yeah, I think you want to
If I could.
Say something,
Can I
please.
clarify something?
Absolutely.
Well, I think it's really important to state that you're looking at this spreadsheet that talks about the costs, and that does not indicate priority. In fact, the reason why there are discrete buckets is because each category is important in its own right. And what that number represents is the estimate of the cost to do all of the improvements that are listed in the plan. And what is also recommended is to allocate funding equally across the buckets, because each one of the improvements each project bucket has equal importance. And so the idea is to put money directly into that ADA bucket and go through those ADA projects. The amount of money that is shown is a cost estimate to do the projects that are listed in the plan. It is not an order of priority. Okay, just want to be real clear about that.
Just wanted to thank staff and also all the members of the task force and our board and commission members and the public that had input as the plan was beginning to develop. And I certainly want to align myself with the comments that were made by Councilmember Berry and also Vice Mayor Snyder. Wanted to thank Mr. Snyder and Councilmember Berry for really diving into the plan over the last week. I think a couple things have come to my attention. When I too looked at the plan, my initial instinct was those were not sort of examples, but those were projects that we were going to actually do once we fund them. So I'm glad to hear tonight that what council's being asked is to adopt the policies, but not the specific items until those are fully vetted with the public. And there's further discussion both at the engineering level and about decision making as to the individual projects that affect block by block, if you will. So I'm happy to hear that, and I think with Vice Mayor Snyder's motion, I think we tried to accomplish that with sort of the chapeau of the plan. And I think we may need to look at some of the language that's there to just clarify that, because I think a lot of the comments that we've received over the course of the week have been an understanding that these were definitive plans that were going to be put into place rather than examples and a framework, and that may not be necessarily accurate, but I certainly walked away with a similar understanding when I first picked up the set. So perhaps we can work on the language to try to clarify that again. I think Vice Mayor Snyder's motion tries to accomplish that, but we need to figure out a way of operationalizing that exactly in the words within the plan. But I think it's really important to move forward with this and to begin to get the public input on this. That's all I have. So with that, let's close the public portion of this hearing, and let's have a vote on the motion.
On Tier 12-09, Ms. Berry?
Yes.
Ms. Gardner?
Yes.
Mr. Snyder?
Yes.
Mr. Webb?
Yes.
Mayor Baruch?
Yes.
Thank you, Council. The next item before your council is Tier 12-12, resolution to evaluate funding alternatives for stormwater management.
Thank you, Mayor Baruch and members of council. The resolution that's before council would provide direction to the city manager and staff to do some work, policy work, and bring it back to the council over the coming months. And specifically, in the area of having a dedicated revenue stream for an ongoing stormwater maintenance and capital planning program. And the way the city has done stormwater management throughout its history is in an opportunistic fashion. When funds were available or when there was a great need, we would apply funds to it. But that was an opportunistic way to go about it. It was not a program. And so what the council's direction here is to create a mechanism where we can have a sustained program and make real progress towards stormwater improvements, both immediately but going into the future, and make a significant difference. And so specifically, it directs the city manager to develop a proposal for a stormwater enterprise fund with a dedicated revenue stream to fund that enterprise fund. And there's three big policy questions that we'll work with as we're going through that process. First, to identify costs. How much money do we need to meet defined service levels in stormwater? Revenues, what's the preferred way to raise those revenues to meet those costs? And then administration, what's the most efficient and effective way to administer revenue collections for this enterprise fund? There's a timeline that's laid out in the staff report to do this work over the summer months with some public input, and then prepare recommendations by the fall on the merits of various revenue sources and present those to council in work session in September, and then prepare an ordinance that would have public feedback on it with the goal of adoption in the winter months so that we can build the CIP and build the budget around that concept through the spring, and then implement it in July of 2013. That's the timeline that's laid out in this resolution. Mr. Hicks is here, fresh from the Appalachian Trail, and both of us are here available to answer any questions.
Council, any questions on this item? Okay. Vice Mayor Snyder.
Yeah, is the question, in our action tonight, we're implying that we would continue maintaining the traditional effort. So we're not offlaying costs from the general budget, but rather what we're talking about with this is the important additional revenues that we need to address long-term infrastructure. Is that right?
That is correct. It's to move existing costs that we do to stormwater, for stormwater, to move that into the enterprise fund, but also to enhance it and make it sustainable over the long term so we can make real progress on these issues.
Other questions from council? If I can get a motion, then we'll open this up for public comment.
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve TR 12-12.
Thank you. If I can get a second?
Second.
That's Mr. Webb on the second. I'd like to open this item for public comment. Are there any members of the public that wish to address this item? Not seeing any. Ms. Bichette, did we receive any written comments on this? I'm going to go ahead and close this item for public comment. Council, any comments before we take the vote on this item? Just one comment that I have for staff. Thank you for bringing this item forward. It's an item that I had asked for, along with several other council members, to begin to study how we're going to tackle this problem. So I appreciate it coming forward, and just wanted to reiterate, I share Vice Mayor Snyder's comments about this is not a way of moving away from what we're currently doing, but looking at ways to enhance and make it very clear that we're dedicated to managing our stormwater through a dedicated source of revenue, which we haven't had in the past. And it also may allow for some incentives for business owners, property owners to manage stormwater better and possibly have ways of reducing some of their costs. That may be one aspect of it. I don't want to prejudge that, but that certainly could be part of the plan. As I mentioned before at the work session, I would also be interested, because we are going to have a lot of unfunded mandates that are coming our way that are going to add to the costs of managing stormwater in the city that the region is going to have to grapple with. My view is those types of items, which we're not currently doing, certainly need to be considered for an enterprise fund. If we're looking at maintenance issues, I think that we need to think about possibly bringing them into an enterprise fund or not. I'm sort of two minds on that. I think that needs to be looked at. But I think we need to do that in a transparent way, because if we do go forward with this, it is going to mean no matter what you refer to it, it's still a tax. It's just going to be a stormwater tax, and I think we need to be sensitive to that. I certainly want to do more on the stormwater management front, and if this gives us a vehicle to do that, I'm happy to study it, and I look forward to getting that as soon as possible. So thanks to staff for bringing this forward, and Mr. Hicks, I know that you and your folks are going to be doing a lot of work on this, and it was a pleasure to serve on the task force as well. Ms. Michelle, if you'd go ahead and call the roll, please.
Ms. Berry? Yes. Ms. Gardner?
Yes.
Mr. Snyder?
Yes.
Mr. Webb?
Yes.
Mayor Baruch?
Yes.
Thank you, Council. The next item are consent items, Council.
There are 3 items on the consent calendar. The first is a resolution approving FY 2012 contingency funds for a grant application to the Virginia Commission of the Arts and the amount is $5,000 that would serve as a 50% match to a $5,000 grant, and the beneficiary of that grant would be Falls Church Arts and Creative Cauldron in Art Space at Pearson Square. The second item on the consent calendar is resolution reducing the number of members of the Historical Commission from 10 to 5. And furthermore, this would also request that the city manager assign a staff member to serve as a liaison to the Historical Commission. Both of those are reflected in this resolution. As was noted by Ms. G tonight, the Historical Commission has gone since 1976 without a staff liaison, so this is an epical moment in the life of the Historical Commission, and Deborah G is particularly well suited to provide that support. And we've worked with the chairman of the Historical Commission to try to have their meetings on the same night as the HARB, which is the other night that Deborah G staffs, and that will allow greater coordination between the activities of those two boards as well. Not at the same time, but at the same night, and one meeting would occur subsequent to the other. The third item on the consent calendar are the appointments as listed on the council agenda.
Thank you very much. If I can get a motion on the consent items, please.
Mr. Mayor, I move the consent agenda.
Thank you. If I can get a second.
Second. I move to adopt the consent agenda.
If I can get a second, please.
Second.
That's Mr. Vice Mayor Snyder on the second.
Ms. Berry?
Yes.
Ms. Gardner?
Yes.
Mr. Snyder?
Yes.
Mr. Webb?
Yes.
Mayor Brooke?
Yes.
Thank you, council.
We are on to council member comments and requests. Council, any comments or requests? Mr. Webb?
And I'm sure several of you will probably share some of the comments, but what a great day yesterday was with the dedication of the Walter Mess Plaza on the WNOD Trail. To see a person who is no better public servant than Mr. Mess has been in this community and in the region is a testament to a person that one day I want to at least give half the time of service that he has given to this community in developing what is now the WNOD Trail that covers from Alexandria all the way out to Percival and Loudoun County. For a person who is, believe it or not, 99 years old and will turn 100 later on this year, you wouldn't know it seeing him getting around, talking about his time of developing working with different leaders, developing the trail, sharp as his tack still, and it's a compliment to him that I think the work that he does, and as he said yesterday, it's all about having fun in doing what he has done over the years. So hopefully with the work that I do here on council and looking at those things, I hope it eventually turn to the fun things of that as well, that what you do turns into seeing a lot of great things happening in the community, and what he did with the WNOD Trail definitely is a great sentiment to the community, and couldn't have this plaza dedicated to a much greater citizen of the city of Falls Church.
Thank you, Mr. Webb. Other council members? I just wanted to also thank our staff, our police department, our sheriff's department, and our various staff members, including Parks and Recs, for helping prepare for the event and making it a safe event yesterday, both the dedication of the Walter Mess Plaza and also the 5K run, and also the participants. It's actually a pretty big draw from outside the community. There's a lot of community members from the surrounding area that actually come to the race. So that was great to see that there is interest in what is otherwise a very local event. But it was an absolute great day, and well-deserved to have and be able to honor Mr. Mess. So for all of our citizens out there, if you haven't had a chance to meet either Roger Nabergall or Walter Mess, you should make the time to do that. They are really what public service and being citizens of a community is all about. So I would definitely encourage you to do that. So those are all the comments that I have. Anything on the schedule, council? If we can move on to approval of the minutes of March 12th, 2012. Any comments or edits, council? Okay, if I can get a motion, please.
Mr. Mayor, I move approval of the minutes, but before I do, I wanted to thank all members of council. Tonight, we heard from a lot of public servants there in the audience, but they're public servants up here too. So we're all working to do the best we can, and I wanted to thank all the members of council. Thanks.
Was there a motion for the minutes in there?
There was
too?
somewhere.
I heard one. I think I heard one before. If I can get a second on the motion. Thank you. All in favor of approval of the motion, or the minutes?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? The ayes have it. The minutes as presented are approved. All right. I need a motion to adjourn, please.
Mr. Mayor, move that we adjourn.
If I can get a second?
Second.
That's second by Ms. Gardner. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? The ayes have it. We're adjourned. Thank you, council. Thank you, staff.